Today's Brisin, the Brisin that we're celebrating here in this room right now, they are the Bris Kodesh.
How 3 adults decide consciously to go ahead and have a bris and become part of Klal Yisrael. We're born into it, and these guys went ahead and did it.
The beauty is that really mitzvahs are always beautiful, and it only brings you simcha and joy. I'm almost jealous that I never had the opportunity to be yotze a mitzvah by giving of myself and pain.
And what they did, it's unbelievable. It's so commendable that these are actual heroes.
I just want you to know how intensely, how proud I am of you and how emotional this time is for me.
We didn't have the choice. We were young children. We were brought to the bris as it was, and that's it. We never had the option or the choice to go ahead with this, but they went and they did it. It's something that I will remember forever.
We are witnesses today that the milah of Avraham Avinu is Maharshal, is ruling over this world. That we are bringing so many Yidden closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom, that they never had a dream that this is what they would become of them.
I've never seen such an incredible simcha as 3 brisim at one time, and I don't expect in the rest of my life I'll ever see something like this. What BJX has been able to accomplish for these people and for the neighborhood and for Klal Yisrael is amazing.
Shemai Yisroel, Moshe, then Michael.
The Moel said, "Oh, you're the third guy. We saved the best for last." So it's really been a long journey. Definitely too much postponed for me. You know, in heart, we really want to be reintroduced to our traditions. And we keep them, but we just need that support that is provided here. I would say we've been showing Shabbat for several months. You guys all make it so much easier for us.
All mitzvahs and tzitzis.
I was telling these 3 young heroes today when I walked in that Baruch Hashem, I'm involved in, almost daily in trying to do things to help Klal Yisrael, to help Am Yisrael. But I don't think I've ever, in all my years of working on behalf of Klal Yisrael, I don't think that I was zoicha, that I merited what you guys did today here in one day.
Here's out the 3 brisos of these 3 students of ours who went from a totally secular background to taking on Aleph Beis and Shabbos, and then now, Baruch Hashem, getting the bris. It was the same day, 3 brises, one after the other. I thought for sure that Mashiach is going to be there. I was so disappointed. But I realized that we still have our work to do. You see, the world is now brimming with sorrows, with problems, with tribulations, with afflictions, with pain. We're on the cusp of something huge, monumental. The world is spiraling out of control. Every U-turn is tragedy, confusion. The world needs a geula, so much so, more than ever before. How are we going to bring the geula? And what are we doing here on Tisha B'Av? We're mourning something from thousands of years ago that sounds so abstract, so foreign, so distant, so unpalatable. So how can we relate to this? I want to share with you a story that I believe is amazing and will help you understand what Tisha B'Av perhaps represents. Rav Meir Shapiro, the holy Rav Meir Shapiro, the Rosh Yeshiva Chachmei Lublin, the founder of the Daf Yomi movement, told this story. He was privy to this because he was a Rav of Lublin, and he found the Pinkus, he found the ledger of the Chevra Kadisha there. This story goes back more than 400 years with the Maharshal, the great Rav Shlomo Luria Zatzal. Rav Shlomo Luria was a contemporary of Rav Yosef Karo, the Maran Beis Yosef. He probably never saw him because they lived in different continents, but he was an intimate of Rav Moshe Isserles. And they say that the Maharshal used to be accompanied by a Maggid who would chastise and rebuke the Maharshal. Maharshal requested this. It shows you his piety and his righteousness, that he wanted someone to follow him around so he doesn't become an egomaniac, and he understands his humility, understands how to be an Eved Hashem. Amazing story. The Maharshal's Talmud was unfortunately a widower. He lost his wife very tragically, very, very, very young. I don't think he had any children. And he was walking around a long time after becoming a widower, a long time after the tragic death. He was walking around despondent, devastated. He was crippled and debilitated by this depression. And the Maharshal asked him, he said, "My dear Talmud, why? What is this? What is going on?" And the Talmud said, "I've never told anybody this," but he broke down crying. He said, "I'm going to tell you, my dear Rebbe." He said, when his wife died, and he was at his wife's deathbed, she made him solemnly make a neder, a promise, a vow, that he would never, ever remarry. There's a young man. His whole future was ahead of him. He was just married. He would never remarry. And to think about such a morbid future with no hope, it paralyzed him. And the Maharshal said, "I order you right now, you must get married. What you did was al pitos, it was a mistake, it was a fallacy, it was an error. You're not allowed to say you're not going to get married. It contravenes the Torah. You're not allowed to make a promise that goes against the Torah. You have to get married. I order you that you should find a wife, a suitable spouse, and get married." The fellow listened to his Rebbe. He found somebody suitable. Must have taken some time. He got married. And very shortly after his marriage, he dropped dead. He died. There was an uproar. There's great turmoil. What's going on here? His Rebbe told him to get married. Listen what happened. The Maharshal instructed the Chaver Kedisha. He said, "I want you to give him a tahara. I want you to purify him, put him in shrouds of tachrichim. But don't cover him up like a regular burial. Put his body inside the earth, but leave it. And in the meantime, I'm going to give you a certain letter, and you're going to put it by the grave." And the letter said like this: "Shalom, shalom, pamayo shamayla. Greetings, heavenly tribunal, shamayim. Ani pasakti. I give a verdict al pi din Torah, by the rule of the Torah, shetamidi, that my student, mutter, not only is he allowed, but chayiv he added on, lase shisha, mutter v'chayiv, he was allowed to get remarried, and therefore I charge you, Shemayim, to return me my Talmud." Hours later, somebody crawled out of his grave. The young man, the widower turned chassan, he went home to his wife, and she gave such a shrek. She shrieked, she screamed, she was panic-stricken. She was terrorized, terrified. The Maharshal went ahead and told him, change it to regular clothing and go on with your life. The next day he went to yeshiva, and his chaverim, his friends in yeshiva, they emptied out of the yeshiva. Everybody was petrified. Who is this? What's going on here? The ghost. Maharshal realized he has to take action because there was tremendous, tremendous fright in the community. And therefore he said, "I rule that the Sar Shel Shicha, the Malach in charge of amnesia, forgetfulness, should come to this town." And within a short time, everybody forgot that this man had died. And this man went on to have a beautiful married life and have many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, oskim b'Torah mitzvahs. You know what this means? That 400 years ago, there walked on this earth a man who was able to do Tchias HaMeisim, Maharshal. You say, who's Maharshal? Open up a Gemara. Learn the Chacham Shlema. His Pirush is on every Gemara. Learn the Maharshal. Learn his Sfarim. He was a walking, talking, living being. And yet the Kedusha, the personification of Kedusha, well, if that strikes you as something huge, then he is just a fragment, a speck of what it meant to have a Beis Hamikdash, what it meant to live when the Shekhinah was pervasive, when the Shekhinah permeated Eretz Yisrael in the world. And the closer you got to the Beis Hamikdash, the closer you were to the clarity, to the moral purity, to no confusion, to understanding what life is about. That's what we're mourning today. We don't have it. We lost it. How do we get it back? The Shekhinah, you want the Shekhinah back? Well, we have to understand, what is the Shekhinah not like? What repels the Shekhinah? What drives away? What alienates the Shekhinah from our midst? And that's called machlokes. Sinas chinam, baseless hatred, making fights. Today it's so easy. You send a text message, a nasty text message. You don't even have to see the person. You send them an email. You lambast them, malign them. You tarnish their reputation. You go ahead and you fight with another yid. I'm not talking about global fighting. I'm not talking about geopolitical. I'm talking about us. How much within our own camps? Terrible, terrible. The pirud, the machlokes, how we speak about people, gossip lashon hara. We're makabel lashon hara, and we think of ourselves as being better than others. You know that this is the season for making siyum because everybody wants to eat meat, even though it's in 9 days. So people are making siyum. So what do you hear at a siyum? You hear about Rabbi Papa and his 10 children. Says the Chasam Sofer, why did Rabbi Papa merit that his name and his 10 children should be at every siyum? Unbelievable idea. He says because there are 10 instances, there are 10 scenarios in the Gemara and Talmud, in Maseches Shabbos, in Brachos, Megillah, Soita, and Chulin. 10 instances where there's a machlokes amoraim, where there's a debate and a dispute between two amoraim. And there's no consensus, there's no unanimous opinion. Comes Rav Papa and he says, L'mernu l'tarayu. He says, we'll amalgamate the opinions and we'll do like both. Rav Papa was the peacemaker. Says the Chasam Sofer that because Rav Papa cared about making peace, so that there shouldn't be dissension or rift, and that there should be consensus. Rav Papa merited to have 10 children for each of those times in Shas when he made peace. 10 children that will light up the world. And that every siyum mesechta, because what is Shas all about? How does Rabbi Yehuda Nasi end Shas? She's the Sidri Mishnah part. Ein kli machzik brach ela shalom, the only utensil that is meaningful. Shalom, peace. How do we end off our Shmona Esrei every single day, 3 times a day? Sim shalom tova bracha. How does Birchas Kohanim end? Shalom, peace. There's nothing more important than peace. The Rebbeinu Shalom abhors and finds machlokes and friction. You could justify from Hein Bismorgen from today till tomorrow why you're not nice to that person and why you're shunning that person and why you're disrespecting that person. It doesn't mean anything. Because Rebbeinu Shalom finds it detestable and despicable and repugnant and abhorrible. So therefore, we need people today that are going to step up to the plate. We need very brave people, macho people, who are not going to go with politically correct, who are not going to go with their parties, who are not going to go with their friends. As the Degel Machan Ephraim says so beautifully, he says the Pasuk tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu that it says, Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu, no one's allowed to go with you. Go alone. Uncharted territory, go alone. No accomplices, no acquaintances. When Aaron HaKohen Gadol goes into the Beis HaMikdash, he's told, no one's allowed to be there. Says the Degel Machan Ephraim, you know what it means? It means when you're doing the right thing, you gotta go. He says it's not only talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not only talking to Aaron HaKohen Gadol, who are at the pinnacle, the climax of Kedusha. It's talking to every single person. When you want to do the right thing, you gotta sometimes be alone. Don't care what others say. You have to be the one to make peace. You have to be the one in the company of those that love peace and pursue peace. So how do we do it? First of all, you got to be somebody who knows how to say, I'm sorry. You got to be someone who knows how to ask forgiveness. You know, right after Tisha B'Av, the first Tisha B'Av, the Jewish people are crying in vain after the spies come. So the Jewish people are punished. They're not going to enter the land of Israel. They're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. They feel tremendous regret, tremendous remorse. So what happens? The next day, they say, we're going up. They wake up early in the morning. They climb to the mountaintop. And they say, Chatanu, we've sinned. And Rebbeinu Shalom says, too late. And they don't meet with a good ending. Chidush Yorim was very troubled with this. One time he encountered the great Admor of David Goldman. And he says to the Admor, he says, I don't understand. He says, elsewhere, whenever they sinned, they were always forgiven. How come in this instance they're not forgiven? What happened over here? And the Admor of Goldman said an amazing idea. He said, if you look at the pasuk, there's another way to read the pasuk. Asher yomer Hashem ki chatanu. That what does it mean? Asher yomer Hashem ki chatanu. That they said, Hashem said we sinned. Not that they said ki chatanu, that we sinned. That they were justifying and rationalizing. And they were saying, oh, well, we don't really believe that we sinned by crying. Hashem said we sinned. When a person doesn't know how to own up to his error, when a person does not know how to rise to the occasion to really say, I'm sorry, not to deliver a letter of apology or to call up and say, you see, I only did it because is a justification. Because is a rationalization. Learn how to say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Make peace. And then the next yesod, the next foundation, is how important it is to learn to forgive. If somebody asks you sincerely for forgiveness, with great remorse and regret, learn how to forgive. Learn how to move on. Yosef HaTzadik, there was probably nobody more persecuted and maligned than Yosef HaTzadik by his brothers. And what does he say to them? He says, V'ata, al te'atzvu. Loosely translated means, and now, don't be distressed, don't be depressed, don't be sad. And he gives them hugs and kisses. But says the Sror Hamor, you know what it means, Ata al te'atzvu? Now, don't be distressed. It means, but later on, in the future, you're going to be distressed because you're going to be reincarnated into the Asar Harugim Malchus, and the 10 martyrs, and you're going to suffer terribly, you're going to be tortured. Ata, now, but later on, you're going to pay the price. The Mishmeres Yisamer has another pshat. He says, V'ata is a lashon tshuva, says the Medrash. So it means like this. V'ata, if you do tshuva, I'll tell you have nothing to worry about. But I'm waiting for you to do emistika tshuva. And as the Rabbeinu B'chaya says, that nowhere in the Torah does it say that Yosef HaTzadik said, I forgive you. Yes, it says he embraced them. He was very benevolent and very magnanimous and really kind. But where does it say, I forgive you, those magic words? He never said it. And that's why the Jewish people suffered later on. How important it is to say, I forgive, to be a forgiving person, no matter how hard it is, to make peace. You know what the Zohar says? The Zohar says there was a man whose name was Rabbi Abba. And this man was like a Superman. You could have hail of bullets. He didn't need a bulletproof vest. The bullets would miraculously never touch him. He could drive 200 miles an hour and emerge unscathed. He could walk through collapsing buildings. Why, says the Zohar, that he had this immunity, this aura or halo, this built-in protection around him? Because he was always forgiving. He never was able to bear a grudge. He never bore a grudge. Whoever harmed and hurt him, he forgave. Amazing madrega. And the third thing is that we have to learn not only to be peaceful, to be proactively loving, to incorporate, to encompass, to envelop other Jews with love. Stop being insular. Stop being elitist. Stop being chauvinistic and ethnocentric. Cut it out. We all belong to shuls that we have our chevra. We send our kids to schools where we have our chevra. But what about looking a little beyond? What about understanding that every Jew is so integral and we have to love every single Jew? So you'll say, well, I don't know if that's appropriate because, I have my values. There's nobody that deliberated with this more than Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, when he had his big encounter with Esav, Harasha. So what happens? He takes his daughter Dinah and he hides her in a chest and he locks the chest. Why did he do that? Because he was afraid for Dinah's safety. He did not want Dinah to marry Esav. Now, one second. Says Rashi, Shema taksirena lemutav, because lest maybe she'll be able to make him into a Baal Tshuva. And the Tanakh and Gemara has many stories of women that used their special Bina Yisera, their magical charm, transformative powers to bring back these guys and make them into tzaddikim. Dinah had the power. So was Yaakov right or wrong? Mayim Chaim says that Yaakov Avinu actually was confident. He knew that Dinah would be able to makarv his brother Esav, without a doubt. But he had an inner bias. It's hard for us to be able to conceive this. We're speaking about Yaakov Avinu, Tiferes, the splendor of Yaakov. But he had an inner bias. And because of his inner bias, his prejudice against his brother, a sinas, whatever it was, he refused because he didn't want Esav to do tshuva. Unbelievable pshat. Scary pshat, frightening. And for that he was punished. That Dinah was accosted later on by Shrem. Terrible, terrible, heinous punishment. No one should be faced with such a dilemma. But Yaakov Avinu should have never deprived his brother. He should have thought about the kiruv component here. However, there's another pshat. Rav Simcha Zisel Kelm says that Yaakov was justified. Subject his daughter to a wicked brute? Why should he? No. Kiruv is important, but to an extent. I don't have to contaminate and pollute my own environment, my own family. Okay. But says Rav Simcha Zisel Kelm that what Yaakov did wrong was that when he put her in the chest, he banged the nails, and he banged the nails so stark, too strong. Instead of banging the nails and crying and saying, I wish I could give you to my brother and you could be makar of him. He didn't do that. He did it, not that he was gloating, but he did it with too much composure, too much equanimity. It's like it didn't affect him, it didn't concern him. Okay, you have to say no, but say it with tears. Understand that we lost another potential yid. Esav was gemalt, he was circumcised. The Mesilas Yesharim says, better to give Dinah to a circumcised male than to someone uncircumcised. He made a mistake. He should have tried to be makarv. Okay, so maybe the Simcha Zisel is saying that maybe he shouldn't have, but at least cry about it. The story about my Rebbe Rav Pam Zatzal. One time a Rosh Kollel came to my Rebbe Rav Pam Zatzal. He needed funding, he needed help with his kollel. And he asked Rav Pam if he could intercede, if he could make some maybe phone calls on his behalf. And Rav Pam said, I feel terrible. He says, you have an amazing cause and I believe in it. He says, but look at my Rolodex. Back then they had Rolodexes, they didn't have contacts on phones. And he says, listen, just today, around 2 or 3 times, I already reached out to all the benefactors, all the philanthropists on I just can't do it again. And Rosh Kollel said, I don't understand. Of course, he sympathized, he understood. He went down the steps in Rav Pam's house. And then he suddenly hears tears, he suddenly hears crying emanating from upstairs. He doesn't know what it is. He just left Rav Pam, everything was fine. He got very concerned. He stealthily goes up the stairs. And he hears more and more crying. And he goes into Rav Pam, he sees Rav Pam is sobbing, he's in tears. And he says, Rebbe, he says, Rosh Hashiva, what is the matter? What happened? And Rav Pam said, I had to turn you away. I had to say no. It pains me that I had to say no. Yes, sometimes we have to say no to our fellow Jew perhaps. But does it pain us? Are we crying? We want the Geula. Not we want the Geula. We're in the year 5777. We need the Geula desperately. And it's going to take people that are Yechidim, that are individuals. They're going to step up to the plate. They're going to rise to the occasion. And they're going to understand what it means to love a fellow Jew, what it means to bring closeness between ourselves and people that we may not get along with necessarily, that we may not meet eye to eye with. But for the sake of Klal Yisrael, for the sake of the world, to turn inward and to say, I believe I have the power. I have the power to say I'm sorry. I have the power to forgive. I have the power to love every single Jew. And that merit, may we see that Tisha B'Av should become sasoin v'simcha and a great moed, and see with our own eyes Mashiach Sekenu b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.
A lot of success.